Hi. So we are working on lesson 8.5 today, which is interpret division with fractions. So anytime we see the word interpret, you can kind of guess that you're going to be working with some sort of word problem, and that's exactly what this lesson is. So using all of those same math skills with division of fractions, we're going to be interpreting word problems. So this is kind of the last lesson of the chapter, which we typically do in our groups where you guys work through word problems together using the skills that you've learned throughout the whole chapter. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples for you to work on. Your Google form for this lesson is going to be 2 or 3, I haven't really decided yet, word problems that you're just going to be looking at the numbers and dividing the fractions. So same math that you have been doing this whole chapter, just reading a word problem to go along with it. So I'm going to read you the word problem, and then I'm just going to show you the math up on the board. And when you go to work on your Google form, just make sure you're focused on your math. And if you need to write it down on paper to make sure that you're getting the right answer, please do that. I know a lot of these numbers are really simple and you can probably do a lot of it in your head, but you want to make sure that you're just double checking your work before you hit submit so that you don't put a silly answer down. And make a simple mistake that you don't need to. So we're going to look at our first problem here, using a fraction and a whole number and dividing. So the first problem is Daniel has a piece of wire that is 1/2 yard long. He cuts the wire into 3 equal pieces. What fraction of a yard is each piece? So we just want to look at the problem, and same as what we do in school, you're circling numbers, you're underlining the question, looking for keywords. So circling the numbers, your first number would be 1/2. We know that we're dividing because that's the whole chapter. So dividing fractions, you know you're dividing. The second number that you would have circled would have been your 3. And then you are going to solve the problem just as you've been doing throughout this entire chapter. So 2 divided by 3. So the first step is we want to make it a multiplication problem. We flip our second number. So the 1 flips around and we end up with 1/3. And then we just multiply straight across to get our answer, which is 1/6. You know you're right, or at least you know you're on the right path, because when you start with a fraction, your answer should also be a fraction. So that's a check to make sure that you have your number set up properly. If this were just a whole number answer, you know that you would be wrong because you should have a fraction as your answer. Going back to looking at underlining the question, that's going to help you figure out what goes on the end here. So what fraction of a yard is each piece? So 1/6 of a yard is our final answer for this problem here. Okay, we're going to go on to our next problem, and I'm going to show you an example using some kind of drawings, which again, if we were working in the classroom, you would be doing the same type of thing with your math groups. So we're going to start with Leah has 3 muffins. She cuts each muffin into fourths. How many 1/4 muffin pieces does she have? So we're taking our numbers that we have circled, and we have 3 muffins, and she is cutting them or dividing them into fourths. And that's the math problem for this piece. So if you wanted to draw it out, and you draw 3 muffins, and you know that she wants to cut them into 4th pieces, so 1/4. And I actually do this with my son every morning for breakfast with his toast. He tells me if he wants it cut in half or in fourths, so 4 pieces or 2 pieces. So when you go to do the math on this one, you're multiplying and flipping your fraction. So 4 goes up top, which means 4 is a whole number, and 3 times 4 is 12. Or you could have counted all of the pieces here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And that is how you get your answer. And we're talking about pieces to end out our answer. And again, double check your work at the end. We end up with a whole number, which we know is correct because we start with a whole number and our answer should be a whole number. Okay. So those are 2 examples, and we're going to look at one more. You're not going to see this on your work because it's a little too hard to check with the Google form, but you're also going to have the option of writing your own problem, which I know we do a lot of with our word problems especially. So if you're given fractions and numbers, making up your own problem. All right, so the numbers are 3 divided by 1/2. And when I think of fractions especially, I always think of cooking, and that's where I use fractions the most in real life. I know we talked about using fractions to measure and to build things, so anyone who works in construction uses fractions a lot too. So when you're coming up with these problems, go to those things. Think about a recipe, think about cooking, think about building something, whatever you can connect with to be able to write your sentence and write your word problem out. So if I'm looking at 3 and dividing that by 1/2, I can think about making sandwiches, because I do that every day for my children for lunch. So I have 3 sandwiches, and I'm going to cut them in half. And how many pieces do I end up with? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I know that if I do my math out for that one, so 3, and I'm going to multiply and flip my fraction to get 2. And I know I have 6 pieces as my final answer. Okay, so again, your Google form for this one is just going to be setting up your math problems, just the numbers, pulling them out of the word problem, and solving the problem the same way we've done for the whole chapter. I will repost the old links of doing the steps of the math if you're still needing a reminder, or if you still want to go back and review that first. Do all of that before you go to your Google form, so that when you do your work on that, you have everything in your mind already and you don't make any simple mistakes. So this will be posted up, and you can go back and look at any of the other lessons that we've done, especially lesson 8.1. That's the one that goes through the steps of this more specifically. Okay, good luck.